Hello, welcome to Eden Hope Academy. I'm Kim. We are on cycle 1. We're on week 7. And if you have your books, get them out and give them a wiggle. Can you do that? Good job. We're going to talk a lot today about Abram or Abraham. And remember, Abram was born with the name Abraham. But God was so pleased with him that he changed his name and he put a HA in the middle of it. And that HA signifies the breath of God, that God has breathed upon this person. And he changed his name from Abram to Abraham. So let's go and let's throw up our Bible verse. Boom! And let's read it. Abraham was the father of Isaac, and Isaac the father of Jacob, and Jacob the father of Judah and his brothers. And that's going to be super important on who Jacob was and Judah and one of his brothers in particular. Do you know who that brother was? Did you say Joseph? You're so smart. We're going to learn all about that next week. But for right now, in the box below here, I want you to draw a picture of Abraham. Can you do that? And while you're drawing, I'm going to talk to you for just a little bit. Now, God told Abram at the time, to start traveling. And he brought Abraham on many journeys through many different adventures. And it's kind of like your life when you think about it. God has you in so many different adventures. And one of those adventures was he was told to go, and that God was going to tell him where to go. But God didn't specifically say to bring anyone. And Abram went ahead and he brought his nephew, whose name was Lot. Can you say Lot? Like a lot, but not really, because he was just Lot. So he brought Lot with him. And at one point on their journey, his sheep and Lot's sheep had become so many, and his shepherds and Lot's shepherds were starting to fight each other. And so Abraham said to Lot, you choose which piece of land you want. You can choose the rockier area, or you can choose a beautiful plain with grassy and beautiful things there. You choose what side you want, and I'll take the other side. Now, which do you think that Lot chose? Now, just keep in mind, Lot had received everything from Abram. He had been under his care, under his uncle's care. He was blessed because of Abram. All the good things that had come to him were from Abram. So which do you think that Lot chose? Do you think he chose the nicer piece of land to show Abram how appreciative he was? Or do you think that he chose the hilly and the rocky piece of land? Well, wouldn't you know it, Lot did not show his gratitude for Abram. He did not say, oh, great uncle, I am so incredibly grateful to you that I will take the lesser piece of land and you have the better piece of land. And so Lot took the better piece of land, which wasn't particularly nice. But that better piece of land, that was right near two towns. One of them was Sodom and the other was Gomorrah. And in these towns, in this plain with this beautiful land around it with plenty of grazing room for your sheep, and it had so many great resources in these towns. But the people in the towns had gone completely against God. They had gone completely against God in Noah's time, if you remember that, and then at the Tower of Babel, and then again in these two towns, completely against God in every way that they could. They were stealing, they were grabbing, they were sitting under which tree? They were sitting constantly under the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It was not good. And so Lot wound up moving into one of those towns. And so he did not stay out. Now let's think about the choices that Lot had here. Lot could have done what? The first thing he could have done is had a humble heart. And he could have said, you should take the better land because you're the one who's paid for everything and you've been so generous to me. So he could have had a humble heart from the beginning. But did he? No. He could have had maybe a house on the outside of town. There were some villages that were outside of these towns. He knew what was going on in these towns, and he knew how disgusting and vile they were against God. But he didn't. He moved into those towns. And some of his children even married people from those towns, even though they knew that they didn't know God or love God at all. So one day, God sends some angels to Abraham, and they talk. And he says that he's going to destroy, the angels say that God has to destroy these two towns. And Abram begs them. He says, please, if there are 100 people in these towns, will you not destroy them? And the angel said, okay, if there are 100 people. Now, what does that remind you of? Does that remind you of Methuselah? It reminds me of Methuselah a lot, because you think about it, God gave 969 years to Methuselah. He gave so much time for people to repent and turn to him. So there were not 100 people in these towns who knew God and were trying to walk with him. And so Abram kept on lowering the number until he got to 10. And they said, still, we will not destroy the town if 10 people come, if 10 people know God. Well, sure enough, they go to the town that night, and the people of the town were cruel to them. They were terrible to them. They were very, very, very mean to them and wanting to do mean things to them. And so Lot brought them into his house, and the angel said, you must come with us and flee. Now, think about this. No one of Lot's family, except for his 2 daughters who were not engaged yet, believed him. They laughed at him. So what was his testimony like in this town? Did he have a good testimony? Probably not so much. Did he have the ability to stand up for what was right? A little bit, but not that much. So when the time came to flee, he fled with the angels. And as they were fleeing, they saw that the whole towns had been destroyed. And those towns today, in the last 50 years or so, they think they found those towns, and they think that they're somewhere around the Dead Sea area of Israel. So let's talk about the life lessons from Lot. You have choices. You have choices of where to live, of who to associate with. You have choices on how to live your life. And when you know that people are going against God, it is never a good idea to join up with them. If you have to move, you should move. If you have to go someplace else, you should go someplace else so that you can retain your love for God and that you're not sucked down those bunny holes that lead you away from God. So that's one story of Abram. There's so many other great stories that you should read with your mom and dad. All right, so did you draw your picture? Good job. All right, so let's go on. I'm going to poof it up. Poof. We're going to talk about the Sumerians. The Sumerians lived in Mesopotamia. Remember what rivers are in Mesopotamia? The Tigris and the Euphrates. Do you know some cities? Did you say Ur? Good job. Did you say Babylon? Good job. Did you say Nineveh? Oh, you're so smart. And where is Mesopotamia primarily today? Did you say Iraq? You guys are just so smart. It's fascinating to see how smart you are. Okay, Sumerians lived in Mesopotamia for almost 2,000 years. From 4000 BC to 2000 BC, they wrote in cuneiform on clay, monopolized the copper trade, and loved blue lapis. The Epic of Gilgamesh was the king of Uruk who ruled around 2700 BC. This is a fun song too. All right, so we've mentioned them a couple of times because there is so long of a Sumerian history in that area. And so it's important to realize that during the time of Abraham, during the time of all these people before and several other generations to come, the Sumerians were right there in Mesopotamia. So I want you to draw a picture of a cuneiform tablet right there. Can you do that? Good job. Okay, so pause or just keep listening. All right, God called Abram away from his homeland and all he knew. Do you think God took Abram away so he could learn about God in a fresh environment? Do you think maybe that's one of the reasons? It could be. Is it sometimes helpful to remove yourself from a people or places so you can hear from God in a clearer way? It could be. That might be something that is important. And sometimes you can't just move away, but you can stay with yourself. You can have private times of prayer. You can just sing praises to the Lord all day long, just to yourself, if you can't physically get away. All right. Sumerians invented the 60-second minute and the 60-minute hour. So every time you look at time or you think about time, you should remember that the Sumerians were there for you when it came to time. Pretty cool, huh? So let's read this together. Let's throw it up. Boom. The 60-second minute and the 60-minute hour are Sumerian ideas. Super Sumerians seized on a sexagesimal structure around groups of 60. Can you guys say sexagesimal? Can you say that word? Say it 5 times quickly. Can you say it really fast? That's so funny. Good job. All right, so I want you to draw a clock right here, and then I want you to tell 5 people today that is a sexagesimal structure that the Sumerians designed. All right, next we have Abram. Got him again. And we have Abram was born in Ur. His dad moved the family to Haran, and Abram walked, God promises a nation, land, and children to Abram and tells him to move to Canaan. Abram walked. And Shechem, Bethel, and Ai, he built altars and walked to Egypt because of the drought. And Abram walked back to Ai. Abram finally stopped walking and settled down in Hebron. Pretty cool, huh? So I want you to start out down here and just draw his path in the places that he walked. So just trace it and you'll be done with that picture. Excellent job. All right, I'm going to be back in just a second and we're going to talk about the timeline cards for this week. I'll see you in a second.